Member for Niagara Falls, come to order. Start the clock. The next question, the member for Cambridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning. My question is for the Premier. Recently, the Premier stated at a Chamber of Commerce event that government should create the environment where business thrives and not be in the business of creating jobs. But once again, the rhetoric of the government doesn't match the policies of this government. For the last 4 years, manufacturing jobs have drastically been lost in Ontario under this government. And for the last few weeks, this government has been promising over $10 billion in new spending, with hundreds of millions of dollars in promises being made every single day. Included in those spending promises are hundreds of millions of dollars being promised to mega corporations. To do what? Exactly what the Premier says government should not do: create jobs dependent on government funding. What is the government's plan to create the environment to grow Ontario's economy that does not include billions of dollars in government spending?
Order. Minister of Energy, come to order. To reply on behalf of the government, Minister of the Environment, or Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade.
Thank you very much. Speaker, when we first took office and we saw the devastation of 300,000 jobs that had left Ontario, Premier Ford asked us to put together a plan, and our caucus put together a plan that lowered the cost of doing business by $7 billion annually, by reducing WSIB premiums by $2.5 billion, by putting in an accelerated capital cost which lets business write off their expenses, their machinery in the first year, $1 billion savings. We saved $7 billion, and what did that do? It put 500,000 people to work in our first term. 300,000 before the pandemic, and 200,000 men and women went to a job for the first time since the pandemic. Speaker, 500,000 jobs have been created because we've created the climate. We've created that whole spirit of Ontario that the Premier talks about every day.
The supplementary question.
Thank you, Speaker. There are two things that are consistent about this government. The rhetoric never matches the policies, and this government has simply copied the philosophy of the Liberal government that preceded it. After 4 years, this government has not kept one single promise it made with regards to taxes or Ontario's economy, including failing to reduce electricity rates. Rates have gone up. Failing to reduce annual deficit spending. We have seen the largest deficit spending ever. Failing to reduce taxes. Taxes actually went up when this government implemented an industrial carbon tax, and failing Ontario's manufacturing sector with hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs lost over the last 4 years. Based on its track record, can this government tell us why Ontarians should believe that the government has any interest in delivering any promises it makes over the next 30 days, starting with today's fiscal projections?
Minister of Economic Development.
Thank you, Speaker. Well, I can tell you that when we got elected, we promised we would turn this economy around, and Speaker, that is exactly what happened in the province of Ontario. We saw an auto sector, thanks to the Liberals backed by the NDP, that was in decline and ready to leave Ontario. In fact, some did leave Ontario, and we stood up and brought $7 billion in lowering the cost of doing business, and Ford, General Motors, Stellantis, Honda and Toyota all have made multi-billion-dollar investments. In fact, in the last 17 months, Speaker, there's been $12 billion, unprecedented in the history of Ontario, $12 billion of new investment. 2,500 men and women are going to go to a job at the Stellantis plant in Windsor, where they're going to make batteries. For the first time ever in the history of Canada, we'll be making them right here in Ontario, all because we've lowered the cost of doing business and supplied the climate for businesses to want to come here, and they're coming here by droves.
Stop the clock. Members will please take their seats.